So I believe there's nobody on Zoom, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and I'll ask everybody to use your mics, please, and try and stop sidebar talks. I'm terrible for it, but I'm going to try hard myself not to. So I'll call this meeting to order. For introductions of late items, I'm going to be adding under presentations number 5, just a very brief, probably about a 5-minute introduction to introduce our new superintendent of the detachment. He's going to give a little fast presentation, not a big one. So other than that, could I please have a mover for the adoption of the agenda as amended? Moved by Jennifer, seconded by Hillary. All in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion carries. Adoption of minutes. Has everybody looked at them? Any errors or omissions anybody wants to discuss? Seeing none, if I could have somebody to move the adoption of the minutes. Moved by Kevin, seconded by Ruth. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion carries. And I would like to introduce to you our newest superintendent. He just was appointed to the position of the OIC of the Nanaimo-Attachment, Superintendent Andrew Burton. You would have seen him here before when he's in the acting role, but now he's officially a superintendent. So welcome and congratulations, and we look forward to your working with you.
Well, thank
or your
you.
delegate.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind welcome. I am a bit familiar with the meeting, with the group. I'd been here, I think, once or twice before, and then my colleague Inspector Rochette took over. He asked me to stand in for him this week as he's away, and it's as Councillor Armstrong said, it's a great opportunity for me to reintroduce myself. As you know, I've been here at the detachment since 2021 in the operations support role, the officer in charge of operations support, and in that role, as you may or may not know, we have a superintendent, we have an inspector in charge of operations, which is our general duty patrol, and then an inspector in charge of operations support, which is essentially everything but. So our drug investigators, our plainclothes investigators, our bikes, our mental health liaison, and teams like that fall under my side. So I'm very happy. I'm very honored to have been selected as the new OIC. Obviously, Nanaimo's very near and dear to my heart, as is the detachment and what we've got going on with groups such as the Public Safety Committee. One of the things when I spoke, when I arrived, I didn't really know what I was going to be talking about. But Councillor Armstrong, I just said if we could talk a little bit about our APP, which is our annual performance plan. And kind of how we come about establishing priorities for the detachment. So the APP, the Annual Performance Plan, is something that every detachment in Canada, every unit in Canada, RCMP unit is required to develop a plan. Basically, it's a roadmap of where we're going to go, what we're going to do, what the priorities are. And this is reached, these are determined through consultation with our partners and service providers, the local government here at the city, as well as with our First Nations governments, and organizations like that in order to determine, and plus our own statistics. We know what's going on within the community through our Prime system and our various databases. So the things that we've come up with for the 2024 year is, and I'm going to go this by memory because I didn't bring it with me, but it's broken down into 4 or 5 different categories. The first being crime reduction and public safety, obviously the near and dear to everyone here's heart. Youth. Drug enforcement, and this is important that I make the difference between just drugs, but drug enforcement specific to trafficking. Now, we recognize that early on throughout this APP period, we dealt with the decriminalization, both the introduction of and revocation of, and that certainly changed the way that we do business. So when I talk about drug enforcement, I'm not speaking about possession. Now, that is something that we are certainly always actively engaged in, but we're not going out targeting people smoking a joint at the corner of walk and don't walk. If we happen to come across it, we're certainly actioning it, but we're more concerned about the drug trafficking. And I think we can all agree that that's a real problem here. The substance abuse, I'm not going to suggest that people are victims by any stretch, but we've got some be careful what I say, some heinous people who deal drugs to vulnerable people, and that's where we're concentrating on when I speak about drug enforcement. Reconciliation and the improving of relationships with our First Nations communities is another area that we're focused on. Member wellness is critical, as you know. The work that we ask our police to do and all of our first responders is dangerous. It's inherently dangerous, and it does come with a cost, both sometimes physically injuries occur, as well as mental illness can as a result of some of the things that we're asking our officers to see and do. So that's a real big thing that we have to look at as the commander and as part of the senior leadership team of the detachment. We're faced with that every day, where we've got this much crime and this much people to solve it or to work on it. So we need to make sure that the people we've got, it's easy for me to come and ask for more people, but the question is begged, well, what are you doing with the ones we gave you? Where are they? How can you get them back to work? So that's kind of the focus that we look at for member wellness. And that's kind of the APP in a nutshell.
Traffic.
Oh, and traffic, yeah, of course, traffic with our impaired driving and things like that. Yes, I'm trying to think if that's another one. I think traffic was at the bottom, now you mention it. So yeah, crime reduction, public safety, youth, drug enforcement, reconciliation, member wellness, and traffic enforcement. I've had the opportunity to speak a couple of times this week at local government meetings, both at Lantzville and at the regional district. And one of the things that I highlighted in one of the slides, and I wish that I brought it with me because it's a very interesting stat, but the importance of the volunteers that we have with our community policing volunteers. I can't tell you how invaluable that support is. We have a lot of volunteers, and they put thousands of hundreds of shifts and thousands of hours into the core programming that they do. And we're very, very lucky to have such a robust and dedicated group of volunteers. And it really, as someone who's tasked with plugging the holes, and sometimes I feel like the little Dutch boy with the dike, right? We got leaks coming out, and where can we plug? We rest assured that core policing will always be, that's our bread and butter, and we will always concentrate on core policing. But the fact that we have the availability of our volunteers to take care of some of the other things and the extra eyes and ears that can alert us, hey, we're seeing a trend here, or we're seeing a problem here with their license plate reading devices and the speed watch. I'd really be remiss. Every chance I get, I'm going to talk about how great they are and how lucky we are to have them in our group. And I think that that's something that's near and dear to your hearts as well. You're all sitting here, and it's important that you understand that it's a real team effort, and I'm very proud of the work that those guys and girls are doing.
Thank you very much. And just so you know, Superintendent Burton's daughter's in town, so I've told him he doesn't need to stay for this meeting because he's seen the work plan. We've gone over it. I've heard his concerns and vice versa. So I just asked him briefly to come in, and I really appreciate you doing that.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
I know
it's
how
important.
Family is, so we'll have you back at another time, but thank you for doing this, and please feel free to leave and join your family.
Okay, perfect. Now, I don't know if it's prudent for me to say, are there questions? Because I know there's rules around this. I'm getting the head shake. No, shaking it off.
No, we won't do questions now.
Okay.
We'll bring it back after, because we're going to have some stuff after our work plan that we're going to have for Inspector Rochette, so.
Okay,
Yeah,
fair
but
enough.
we just wanted the opportunity to, share how thankful we are that you got the position and how you worked really hard with us, and we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, and
Thank you.
right back at this group as well. And I know that it's difficult. You guys are tasked with a lot, and your input's invaluable, and I really appreciate the work you're doing. I really feel that we're all on the same team and working towards common goals here. So thank you
Great,
guys for the
thank
work
you.
that you're doing.
Now, I am going to also talk about a couple other things I forgot to. First of all, I know it's frustrating because it seems like we're not getting anywhere fast. And I know that, but we have to realize this is a committee that's restarted again. We had the exact same thing happen with our accessibility committee, and it took us, quite a while till we've got to get our ground rules worked out and all that, and then we have to get council to give us projects. So myself, Richard, Dave, and Hillary met on Monday, and we've got some ideas of some stuff that we're going to be referring to this group. If council agrees, I've got a motion coming forward to refer it's a liquor policy, and I always get the wrong number, but anyhow, it's what we're looking at, like, because our policy's so outdated and, like, as Hillary's heard some different things from, like, cafe owners, or when we have a big event in the park, do you have to fence it off? Could you not? Like, so those are things we're going to be asking the committee to look at. What are your thoughts? How will it contribute to public safety? Will it make it worse? Will it make it better? Blah, blah, blah. I know that we have restorative justice coming up at the council for funding, and that's something we're looking at referring to this committee is and I know Scott has talked about it at length, the importance of the program, and should we keep it? Do we fund it better? Like, recommendations coming from this committee as to what you think of the importance of restorative justice is for the city, because if we don't fund it, the program dies, things like that. So that's another one that came forward. And then another thing that Hillary brought forward, which I think is a good one, first I didn't, but I do now, is looking at our empty spaces, how can they be utilized better? Because I was looking at it from a stupid perspective, only through crime prevention and then like she said, but we need to talk to the people that use it, and she's right. So I think that's really important, and that's one good thing, that I really respect about our council is we can have these discussions, and we open our eyes to new ideas and new thoughts. It's really good, so, and I appreciated her viewpoint once I sat back and thought. And the other thing, my last thing before we move on, is we have to remember to be respectful of each other. I know that we're all here with different life and lived experiences, and we all have our own ideologies. But what our focus has got to be on is the public safety here, and how can we improve public safety. It's not about how, root causes will be part of it, but we can't solve the root causes, but we can certainly do the advocacy group. But, we need to be really respectful. If somebody says something you don't agree with, please put up your hand. I'm going to insist that we put our hands up now, no side chatter. If there's a concern, please bring it to me. And if you're not comfortable addressing it with the person, or if you want somebody else, I certainly will do it, or vice versa. I think it's really important that we try and remember what our purpose is that we all want to improve public safety. We just see different ways of doing it. So I just wanted to bring that back. And I did want to reassure you that it does seem like we're getting nowhere fast. And as Mr. Harding said, we felt the same thing at the Accessibility Committee, and I was on that, and it's like, oh my God, like, not another this, not another that. But once the work started coming in, then we started getting, so I just wanted to reassure you that eventually we will get to some production. It's just we have to, and again, because it's a political committee, it's not like a community committee, we have to follow set rules and guidelines, and this is one of them by setting up our terms of references, work plans. So anything else, Hillary? Mr. Hardy, anything you wanted to add?
No, the only thing I'd add is that just with the advisory committee on accessibility, council didn't have one for years, so they didn't know where to send things. And once they knew that they had a committee, they started sending things. And I think we haven't had this type of committee for at least 7 years, if not 8 years. So 7.
Because I sat on it.
Yeah,
when
7.
I first got
We debated.
council.
I think it's anyway. We're between 7 and 8 years. I
Went away in 2018.
Even as staff, as we started, there's a program. For example, we're coming up for a review for council this next month, which is a restorative justice program. And we thought, well, now we have a committee we could actually refer that to. Council, as things come forward to council, they'll have, and now they'll know this committee's here that they can send things to. So I think that'll be important. That's what happened with the advisory committee. And now it's getting some good referrals of projects that are meaningful and have something to kind of chew on and work on. So like I said, it'll take a bit of time, but it will get there.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Now moving on to our reports, we're going to have our updated draft Public Safety Committee work plan is going to be introduced by Nicolina, of Legislative Services. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the previous meeting held on September 4th, staff reviewed the draft committee's term of work plan with the committee, and based on the feedback we've received that day, we have updated the work plan, including removal of the 3 initiatives that were at that time deemed to not be within the committee's scope. Based on the committee's request, staff have also reviewed each of the remaining 13 initiatives and classified them as either low, medium, or high priority. So that information is now incorporated in the draft work plan as well. In a moment, Mr. LaBerge will review each item and the priority rankings with the committee. I would just like to note that the priority rankings do not necessarily indicate how quickly or promptly an initiative might be brought forward to the committee or addressed. There are, of course, a number of other factors that must be considered throughout the year, including council's priorities, operational needs, as well as the staff's capacity and any funding implications. So with that in mind, staff are here today to guide the committee in finalizing its work plan and then advancing it to council for its approval.
So just as a matter of principle, for either you or Mr. LeBears, do we want to go through each one, or do you want to go through the whole thing, or where do you want questions?
That's at the discretion of the chair, whatever would
Thank
suit.
you. Yeah. So at the discretion of the chair, oh, sorry,
Madam Chair, if I may suggest, it may be most orderly to perhaps review them team by team, item by item, to ensure that we go through each item before we finalize the work plan.
okay, so what we will do after theme one is introduced and discussed, if you have a question on theme one, please put up your hand, I'll write it down, and then I'll call you once our speaker is done. Does that work for everybody? Perfect. Mr. LeBears, please.
Good, thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, committee members. I'm going to try to make the summaries as brief as possible so you have time for discussion. So jumping in, first of all, to transportation safety, the action plan to improve safety of transit stop locations. The feedback we got from city staff, this would be of a low to medium priority. Rationale being that the design of these sites are governed by TransLink and BC Transit stop guidelines, and it's generally viewed that almost all of the stop locations throughout the city are generally safe, except for a couple of noted locations which we're all familiar with. And probably just some direct enforcement would probably mitigate a lot of those concerns. So we thought that probably this wouldn't be a high priority for this committee.
Thank you. Colin, did you have a question? You have to put your hand up so I can see. Colin?
Yeah, I guess the feedback that I've gotten from members of the community is considering that it's a low to medium priority at this committee level, because of some of these specific areas or locations that are a problem now, is there something being done at the city level to press TransLink and RDN or whoever needs to know to
take
deal
that.
with the issues, particularly the group that comes to me quite a bit is the Newcastle Communities group, and they have some significant concerns in their neighborhood.
Okay, so I can answer part of that, and if I don't, please. So I sit on the transit committee at the RDN, which in transit is the responsibility of the regional district, not the city. And what'll happen is here, when we get our emails, we do get emails like Dufferin, I don't know if you are aware of Dufferin, but we did have that bus stop removed because there were so many complaints. Dufferin Place had issues with it. So because of the issues, and they would send, what'll happen is they'll send out, transit will send out a supervisor to check on it. They will move them on. If they don't move on, or if it becomes so that it's become so problematic, they will remove them. But it takes a lot for them to remove them, and it takes repeated calls, and it takes repeated attempts to try and get people to move on their own, try and link them up to services, because again, that's where a lot of the vulnerable shelter, but also criminal activity is not supported. So that's been the process so far. And I think TransLink is still, and correct me if I'm wrong, Hillary, that's still the process they want, is they take it as the information comes into council or the RDN, we forward it to Darren Marshall, who's our TransLink, and our BC Transit, sorry, not TransLink, BC Transit, because we use BC Transit. He's our representative to BC Transit. He runs the, right now, is it general manager? I get, whatever it is, of the city transit. So that is being looked after. So just because it's a low priority, it doesn't mean really problematic ones. Like I received 3 emails the other day on the one at Tim Hortons on Comox. So that was forwarded to them because it does belong to them, right? For them to address. And it may not be the answer you're looking for, but that's the process right now. And if anybody thinks of a better process, please feel free to email me, and I will certainly forward that on. Any other questions on that one? Did you want to add anything, Mr. LeBears?
No, thank you.
Okay, next, theme 2, please.
Thank you, Chair. So on the theme of crime prevention, the first action is increased use of CCTV. Staff felt this was a low priority for a number of reasons. One, that the location and scope of CCTV installations are very tightly governed by privacy law, and also limited by budget considerations. These arrays are very expensive. For example, we just installed CCTV in two of our downtown parkades, and it was almost $200,000. So these, as we're building new infrastructure, we are budgeting and installing the necessary apparatus. And I can tell the committee that a comprehensive strategy is being developed by a project team in the city, and we're currently in the policy phase, which is, is going to be very slow and methodical. But one thing that the committee may want to deliberate on, and would be touching on the next point, is what the opportunities are for use of CCTV by business communities. For example, as a government, we can't place cameras that surveil public streets, but businesses on a street could have forward-facing cameras that put views out from their shops out into the adjacent street areas. And I know there are a number of municipalities that have taken that type of approach, so that's one aspect that maybe the committee might want to consider.
A question now from myself. You said the city's looking at developing their policy, whatever. Is that something that would come to this committee after, like we do, to see, do we agree with, or like, could we make suggestions that we like this area, we don't like that area for these reasons?
It's certainly something that could come through the committee. It'll be more, it's actually an update of the council CCTV policy. We're going to update it on, and it'll be on things like privacy and who gets to access the systems. So it's, very policy heavy and,
Okay.
less operational. So some of it may be germane to this committee, but a lot of it won't.
Okay, that's something we can discuss. Any other questions besides me on that one? Okay, seeing none, next one.
So again, on the theme of crime prevention, avoiding the closure of business and public spaces because of crime and disorder, staff rank this as a medium to high priority. And I think the challenges that go on this action plan is going to overlap in a lot of the action items that are on this list, because it's most often this is associated with homelessness, mental health, and addiction issues in the community. And of course, because that's the case, it also requires responses from all levels of government. Staff see opportunities to explore options for housing, shelter, warming, and drop-in centers, broader engagement with the Chamber of Commerce and our business associations, consideration of neighborhood safety audits that are conducted by the RCMP community volunteers, and maybe some recommendations as far as dedicated police resources for hard-hit areas, like the site team that works downtown for the police, and then greater opportunities to collaborate with neighborhood associations. So staff feel there are quite a few good opportunities here.
I have another question on that one. Would it be possible, I don't know if this has happened, I don't know if it's Mr. LeBerge or Ms. Wood, for the audits to be sent to the committee so that we can see what has happened and if there's any recurring themes in different communities?
Yeah, through the chair. Thank you. They are available online, but we can definitely make arrangements through the community policing coordinator to get all of the neighborhood safety audits that have been done thus far. And I do believe that there's some plans to do some in early winter 2025 as well.
Is that something the committee would be interested in seeing? I'm seeing nods, so yeah, that would be great. Councilor Eastmere? Go ahead, yeah.
So I guess the one change here, it notes that staff are working on a report to council on options to regulate vacant properties, and that actually did come to council on Monday. And I apologize, I believe that was a missed opportunity on my behalf to send that, to make the motion to actually refer that report to this committee. Instead, I moved a motion that we get more information on the second and third options, which were to create a vacant property registry or to strengthen our current regulations. But we heard from staff that our current program they felt was adequate, so that motion failed. So at this point, that report wouldn't be coming back to this committee for consideration. So I don't know what to do with that.
Okay, we'll get back to that. Colin, and then Jennifer.
Yeah, I think just feedback from the community that I've received is if the staff might think what's happening is adequate, but the public does not. So I think the the issues with vacant properties in Nanaimo and the dangerous situations that it creates for the neighbors and the residents, I think needs to be addressed with pretty much every resource available because it's a major problem in this city.
Okay, I'll go to Jennifer next, then I'll speak.
Not specifically about vacant properties, but the work plan item, that one is particularly troubling to me because, you know, it kind of destroys the fabric of the city of Nanaimo. It makes it seem for the businesses that are working hard that they're not getting enough support from government, whoever that might be. And I just wonder, like, when I look at this, you know, some of the steps that have been taken, for example, the community safety officers and a few other items have been really, really fantastic, like absolutely fantastic. I can't say enough how good those have been, but I don't, like, it's obviously not enough. I mean, maybe it's just a bottomless pit, but even when I look at the details and actions and I don't have the answer, I'm just wondering, like, can't we come up with more than just, you know, a plan to report? Surely there must be more that we can do for the business community in order to assist them with the things that they're encountering, you know, every day in some circumstances when they come to their businesses. So that's not really, I'm not really forward looking in that, but that one to me is particularly important. And I just wish that the list of details / actions was longer. And I wonder if as a committee, we can come up with some more specific items that we could do there in order to provide assistance.
Yeah, this is our work plan, so we definitely can come back to that. The other option, because I was on the winning side of the report, I can ask for it to come back and then we can refer it to the committee on the vacant property. Because I think a lot of people, and I think it'd be important for the committee to realize that we are very limited what we are allowed to do with vacant properties. So that would be, unless you want to address that now, Chief, or?
No, I think Mr. LaBerge just spoke during council meeting clearly about it, about the community charter and the fire code and what we're able to do. I would be interested in understanding what beyond that.
Okay, so what we'll do then, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'm conscious of time, is I will make the motion at our next council meeting to have the report referred to this committee. And then we can discuss it and you guys can be prepared to answer the questions, because I think when this committee understands what it is, that will help the community understand too. So I will make that as myself or Hillary. I know you can't because I have to. I'll make a motion to bring it to this committee.
That's what my question was going to be.
That would be the correct rate, Ms. Ricard? Thank you. Okay, I think that would answer, and then that will give us more opportunity to look at it and learn more about what we do and what we don't do and why we can and cannot do some stuff. Okay, so that'll happen, so that'll be one thing we can work on. Anything else on this one?
Well, to Jennifer's point about what more we can do, there was also something brought up recently with the Nanaimo Prosperity Corporation that we requested do some sort of like exit interviews with businesses that are considering leaving or that do decide to leave, to kind of figure out what more we can do better. And part of that was definitely focusing on the economic factors, but I think potentially through that, we may be able to identify things that we could be doing better in that sense. But as you said, like this is our work plan, but it's also like a working document. And if we have ideas, you can certainly bring them forward at any point.
Okay, seeing no other comments, thank you, Mr. LaBerge. Next one?
Yeah, well, thank you, Chair. And maybe if I could just add in response to Ms. Milbank's comments that the lists we're providing today aren't intended to be exhaustive of all the initiatives that are being taken by the city, but just examples of work that's being done and could be done. Really what we're looking for is some out-of-the-box thinking or creative ideas from this committee. So certainly, we'll be alive to any recommendations that we hear.
Thank you.
So turning to implementing a community-wide graffiti removal and cleanup initiative, this is rated as a medium to high priority. As we all know, graffiti is ubiquitous throughout the community. And as the chair mentioned at the previous meeting, the city previously had a really well-organized graffiti task force that operated for many years but disbanded about a decade ago. And that was due to be loss of some key personnel, the time and budget constraints that went with it. There are a lot of things to think about here, a lot of education and budget components. Our downtown vandalism relief grant program, which I spoke to at the last meeting, does proactive graffiti removal not only on public property but also private property. City also has a contractor that removes graffiti from city infrastructure citywide, and that's done on a proactive basis. But clearly, it's not enough. So I think there's some really good opportunities here for this committee.
Comments on this? Go ahead, Jennifer.
If I could, to Mr. LaBerge, I'm curious to know what the limitations are with respect to private properties. So the example I keep on using is the property at the one end of the Fitzwilliam Bridge. I mean, it's not necessarily their fault if there are people who are, dumping debris on a property, or if there's a property owner that is consistently allowing debris to accumulate on a property. What are the city's options to deal with that?
Are you asking about unsightly premises for the dumping of garbage, or are you asking about graffiti, or both?
Mostly unsightly premises.
Then that would fall under the city's maintenance of property bylaw. And by the kind of rules of enforcing it, we don't proactively enforce. It's a complaint-driven process, and that's a very large part of the enforcement work that the bylaw department does, is clean up properties on a complaint basis. If you see one that isn't being addressed, it's likely because we're not receiving the complaints.
Go ahead.
And then just a follow-up, does the city have any programs to provide financial assistance if it's not the business's or the property owner's fault? Because I think that's where the mismatch is.
Through the chair, no, we don't have any incentive programs. Private property owners are expected to maintain their own properties.
We're very limited under the community charter, what we can do to support private businesses. And I'll just add one other point. Like, I hear from the people in the North End all the time that they don't get any relief because everything is just for downtown. I mean, because graffiti is really bad at the North End right now, so. That's something we have to be cognizant of as a council too, right? It's not just about one area of town. We have to treat the whole city as a whole, so.
And I would add that a lot of the biggest cleanup challenges we have are actually on provincially owned properties.
Yes.
Within the city.
Anything else on this one? Seeing none, okay, Mr. LaBerge?
Thank you. So turn to the theme of homelessness and community impacts. Number 5 is establish baseline and implement long-term monitoring for the impacts on community safety. Staff came back with ranking this as a medium priority because there are so many ongoing monitoring projects. That includes the RCMP that provides mapping and crime data and reports compiled by analysts to council regularly. There might be an opportunity for some of that information to go through this committee as well. The city plan has a monitoring strategy, and this includes indicators and metrics for traffic-related injuries, fatalities, crime statistics, and perceptions of safety. The city also tracks metrics for city-funded social programs, such as our warming centers, drop-in hubs, shower programs, rent breaks, and supplements. And we also do risk tracking, compiling a database from the NAMO acute response table. So there is a lot of monitoring going on, but like all the other initiatives, there's probably some good opportunities that are still out there.
Anything on this one? Okay, Mr. LaBerge?
So providing indoor spaces for unhoused individuals. Of course, in everybody's mind, this is a high priority. We agree. We estimate that our current capacity to provide shelter to our homeless population, probably about 10 or 15% of who's on our streets. We've reported to this committee that the Provincial Heart and Hearth program will introduce approximately 245 new units of supported housing at 4 sites in the city. One at the Newcastle site is already in operation. The other 3 are expected to go online in early 2025. A lot of work to be done here. Processes to identify and transition the residents that'll be coming out of the shelters into these sites. and of course, strategies to communicate and support the neighborhoods. An expression of interest is just closed to create 2 year-round drop-in hubs, which will be similar to the warming centers operated in the past. This is an initiative funded by the city and the federal Reach and Home. Locations and service providers will be identified sometime in the near future. And like Heart and Hearth program, considerable work will be necessary to communicate, engage, and support the neighborhoods where these services will be located.
No questions? Okay.
Turning to the theme of health and wellness, work to ensure safe access to public spaces. Staff reported this as a high priority. It touches on priorities of council, things such as alternative modes of transportation and program of spaces for active use. I think this was discussed extensively at the last meeting. This would include examples like the success of the downtown night markets, the redesign of the commercial street, reactivation of Dana Corral Plaza. As the chair indicated at the start of the meeting, there was also discussion that might include an update on the city's liquor control strategy, which is now 20 years old. So that would tie closely into the programming of special events and community and festival events throughout the community. And in this as well, there are many SEPTED considerations and design considerations through the development permit process. So a lot of work to be done here.
Questions? Okay.
So on the theme of advocacy, advocate for addressing the root causes of the opioid overdose, public health, and safety emergency. Staff rank this as a medium priority. As discussed at the previous meeting, many of the social determinants of health are within provincial jurisdiction, but we also recognize that this is a local health crisis. The city's doing a lot of ongoing advocacy work. Letters have been sent repeatedly to the province and the health authority through the mayor's leadership's table. City provides its housing support through the Nanaimo Regional Rent Bank program and rent supplement program. We provide social planning grants to organizations for programs of social cohesion to address root causes of poverty, social equity, and community vitality. We've also partnered with Public Safety Canada on a multi-year guns and gangs program through the Youth Resiliency Program. And as mentioned, the Nanaimo Acute Response Table is coordinated by the city and is providing a great deal of advocacy for individuals who are in crisis and living at risk. So here again, a really big item, a lot of work being done, and certainly some things that the committee could work on.
Doug?
Just going back to item 4, what does CPTED stand
Oh,
for?
crime prevention through environmental design.
Through environment, okay. Thank you.
Okay, Dave? Or Mr. LeBerge, I should say.
Turning to number 9, advocate for the implementation of Housing First initiatives and related best practices to address and reduce homelessness. Staff came back to suggesting this is a low priority because the funding for temporary and permanent housing comes from the provincial and federal governments, and healthcare initiatives are a provincial mandate. The city worked for a number of years on a health and housing action plan that was developed by a task force and is now being implemented through the systems planning organization. As noted with other work plan items, the city continues to advocate with the province for investments in shelter beds, more rent supplements, and other housing supports. The city also encourages affordable housing initiatives through the property tax exemptions for non-market units, short-term rental regulations, and zoning revisions, which is allowing for great infill of housing. Supports to non-market housing through the Housing Legacy Reserve Fund.
Questions? Okay.
Number 10, request reimbursement of municipal funds expended on the opioid crisis. This was identified as a medium to high priority, and just say that a lot of this work is being advocated strongly by the Union of BC Municipalities, but lots of opportunities here.
Okay.
Advocate for a restorative justice program. Staff came back as a medium priority. This is a police initiative, and I think as the chair pointed out at the last meeting, there is a restorative justice program in the city operated by Connective Society. It's operated here for 20 years, and I believe it actually operates in the schools to a limited extent as well. This program is funded by the city, and it just came to my attention that the police services intends to bring a report to council in the near future recommending increased funding as the current funding levels have been unchanged for many years, and that really limits its capacity. So with this committee, there may be some discussion or opportunities to look for other funding sources outside of just the city.
And I'll just add that it's our intent to refer this to the committee when it comes up at the finance and audit, to refer restorative justice, the program. So that will be something we can look at in different ways, like should we increase it? Should we look at what's the, pros and cons to it? We could probably get whoever the coordinator is to come in and do a fast review, and maybe even from the school perspective to talk about the importance of it in the schools, and then whatever else the committee thinks of. And I know Scott has some ideas around it, so please feel free to share if you think anything, and we can include it. Kevin?
Is there any way to get more information on it? Maybe I'm just not informed, or I don't know where that is, but is there information, statistics, like on its effectiveness and stuff like that? Would be nice to review ahead of time.
I think I have quite a bit still. I'll look to see. It'll be probably about outdated by about 5 years. That's my problem. Sorry, Mr. Harding?
Yeah, through the chair. So the report that we bring forward will have a background of all of it plus the statistics. And then if council chooses to refer it to the committee, then we'll bring all the data that's in that report and forward to the committee at that time.
I can just tell you from my experiences, having used it for many, many years and sitting on the boards, it's probably one of the best programs you can have for to bring down recidivism rates, as well as to keep kids out of the criminal system. And even adults. I think it's more impactful. It really helps victims better than our system. They don't feel re-victimized. So I can find some stuff and send it to you if you're interested, getting it before. Because I know I still have some someplace. And I know, Scott, you probably have some stuff, eh? Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Anything else on the RJ? Mr. LaBerge?
Thank you, Chair. Report on the details of council's advocacy work. This staff ranked this as a high priority because, of course, it's important for the work of this committee to be informed of the actions being taken by council in all public safety matters. So, and it'll improve the flow of information. And lastly, improving the understanding of public safety in Nanaimo. Staff came back with a medium priority on this. A lot of the feedback was from our communication department. They're very active on social media and podcasts and web pages that provide ongoing public awareness of the initiatives. Similarly, the RCMP and fire department have many public safety programs, just a few such as Blockwatch, Fire Smart, public safety alerts, disaster readiness, etc. But as in all things, all new ideas and perspectives are always welcome. So certainly there would be some opportunities here as well.
I did have a question on that one. Is it Evan that does our public stuff? Because I know I've heard quite a bit of concern, more from the Chase River area than others, about interface wildfires. Like, what is the city's process? How will it get out? Is that something that would be the committee would be interested in, or are you fine with just leaving it to reading it on wherever? Sorry, Chief?
In terms of Fire Smart, Evan is, but also our Fire Smart team, which we have a couple members on, and they do open houses, community workshops. We're doing a department open house on October 23rd, all dealing with wildfire.
Yeah, because a lot of people are concerned because there's one way in and one way out, so. Okay, thank you. Anything else on that one from anybody? And I just would want to add too, yesterday we had reports from Parksville as well as Nanaimo RCMP, and all of them have seen a huge increase in online reporting, which is great, and also crime is dropping in most areas. You will see in some places there's been a significant increase in domestic violence, but that's because of the way they now use stats for it. It used to be just partner on partner, now it's grandparent, boy against a sister, boy against mother, so the stats have gone up like 454% in Parksville, but you will see that really drop next year when the same stats. So if you do hear about it, and I'm sure some people might, that's the reason for it, is the way they now are classifying what a domestic crime against thing is. Because it used to be, like I say, it just used to be intimate partner violence, and now they've expanded it hugely to include any relative, upon relative. Anything else?
I believe that's the list, Chair.
Ms. Ricard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If the committee is satisfied with the work plan as presented today, a motion that the committee recommend to council to approve the term work plan would be now in order.
Any discussion on the work plan before we get to a motion? Kevin?
Is there any way to just leave in a bit of an open-ended clause in there for anything else that comes up throughout the term or something like that that may not have been addressed?
Ms. Ricard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe it was mentioned in the last meeting that committee members would certainly have an opportunity to raise other items under the other business portion of the meeting. And also on an annual basis, there will be an opportunity to review and determine the annual work plan for the committee.
And also anything that council deems they want to send will, you know, if council decides there's something not on here that they want to send, that will become our work plan because council's the one actually that technically does set the priorities that they want to see us do. Anything else on the work plan before a motion? Yeah. Anyhow, thank you everybody for your work on this. I know it's been tedious and it's, you know, but hopefully we can start getting into the meat and, what is it? Nitty gritty, whatever. My mind's fried right now. So if everybody's in concurrence with that, I'll ask for a motion to approve the work plan. Moved by Doug, seconded by Kim. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. LeBerge, for your work. Thank you, staff, for all your work. Other business. Geez, we were going through this not even in an hour. Anybody at the table want to share anything or have any suggestions? Mr. Cowling?
I would just be curious to know what the restrictions are on the closed circuit TV, because I can turn on Drive BC and see all sorts of stuff. And so I'm just worried that we're being too paranoid about the closed circuit TV cameras. And if at some point we could get a fuller explanation of
Mr. LeBerge?
Yeah, thank you through the chair. It's a good point, and it goes back to the expectation of privacy. So there's probably a low expectation of your vehicle driving over the crest of the Coquihalla to see what the snowfall is, as opposed to the activities that you're doing in public domains and public plazas or on streets. And these policies are driven by the Privacy Commissioner's office, and anytime we install a camera, we have to write a privacy impact assessment explaining the need for it, and we have to provide a justification. And in the case of our infrastructure, we have to point all our cameras only on our properties, and we have to gray out any areas that overlap onto adjacent public spaces. That's how rigid the rules are, and that's the Provincial Privacy Act.
I would just think that the council municipalities would want to lobby for some sort of change to that, because it's just the most effective, one of the most effective crime prevention things you have.
Yeah, it's used a lot in Britain, I know that. Okay, something we can think about when we get if we do get the report, which I think we all get partial of it. And I guess another question you may know, Dave, I don't know. Is there any laws around retention of how long the videos stay? Because that can be very costly.
Yes, part of the privacy impact assessments that we write, we also have to commit to retention policies. In the city right now, it's 2-week retention.
Thank you. I know, because I know that was an issue with the police body-worn camera, because they have to be retained. I think theirs are 7 or 9 years, and storage is very costly, and it's usually off-site someplace. Like I know some of them are in Calgary. Yeah, so those are things we have to think about. Like a lot of this stuff, like, you know, I saw Kim's face when she heard the cost of the cameras. People don't understand how much stuff costs, and that's why sometimes, why aren't we doing this, why aren't we doing that? A lot of it does come down to budget. You know, it really does, and we actually do more than a lot of places when it comes around to, like, we pay a lot of dollars into homeless shelters that a lot of communities don't. We support quite a few, not, obviously not enough, but we do try, because we have to be cognizant it is taxpayers' dollars. And I think as we go through this, you'll start to see why, when we go to the vacant properties, that the community charter only allows us to do so much. Whereas when people compare us to Vancouver, what people don't realize, Vancouver it's the only place in the province that has its own charter, so they can basically write their own rules. So we can't compare ourselves to any other place, same like we can't compare ourselves to other provinces. So we'll start to learn more about that when you start to see why, well, geez, we get this all the time on the APP. Well, I know in Ontario they're doing this. What they don't realize in Ontario, you don't need electoral approval, right? So every province is different. So I think it's really important that on this committee, if you do have questions about, well, why can't we, please ask them so that we can explain, or staff can explain why we can't. Then you can share that information. Well, I just learned that we are not allowed to do this under this law or that law. Because there's a lot of stuff we'd love to do, like put up the cameras, right? But we're not, our hands are sort of tied by rules and regulations. Okay, does anybody else want to speak on anything? Hillary? Got all this time. But I guess people might want to go and watch the debate. Go and get some. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hockey. That's more important.
As soon as
Go
you
ahead,
said that
Scott.
too, and then I'm like, can I speak one more time? I guess I just wondered, does CCTV, how does it prevent crime? I'm honestly ignorant to it. I understand that it could identify perpetrators sometimes, and then that could be used as evidence. I know it displaces crime, moves it to different locations quite frequently, but I don't know if it prevents crime or does it. And I just know sometimes just having a sticker that says there's a camera there is just as effective as having a camera there.
Dave?
Quite frequently.
Oh, through the chair, it's a good question, and I think part of the answer is whether it's live monitor or whether it's just recorded. If it's recorded, then it's just say an investigative tool for the police after the fact. What we're actually trying to work for in the city is to create an operational center where we view the cameras 24 hours a day. Kelowna has a very robust program and a very expensive program, and to Mr. Calling's point, they're the one municipality in the province that does put cameras in their public spaces and plazas and do it unabashedly. And I'm surprised that the privacy commissioners let them push it. So, I mean, there's maybe a point of argument to me that sometimes you have to push the envelope. But yeah, I mean, the areas where we've really invested, like our parkades now, of course, there's just acres of unattended space, and then all the stairwells, and these are real ambush locations. So here's where we think there's a real critical value in the investment.
That's a really valid point.
Yeah, the live monitoring.
Yeah, it is. It's like, I think that's one of the reasons we're seeing break and enters going down, because a lot of people got the Ring cameras now and all that, and that's live. So people aren't targeting them, or alarms, right? But you're right. For the most part, if they're not monitored, they don't prevent the crime, but they help afterwards solve the crime. And we should be really focusing more on prevention, so we don't have the crime happen.
Displace it either way.
Yeah, but in
People go, there's a camera, I'm gonna quit committing crime.
yeah.
Just move somewhere else.
Yeah, but when your whole city's covered with them, it's hard. But you're right, it doesn't really stop hardcore criminals from doing their crimes. You're right, it displaces, it's when it's live monitored that it makes the difference. Hillary?
And I would just say, if we're looking at the parkades, that is a particularly problematic area for folks feeling like they're unsafe, or so when we're addressing feeling safe in public spaces, especially because they are city-owned, that will be a part of it. But I will certainly look forward to hearing from the project team whenever we have a chance, as they're working on a citywide plan apparently. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see, if it would, we hear a lot of people don't like to go at Mafia Sutton at night because they're scared, right? So, I don't know. Doug, you were going to say something?
Is it premature to have a discussion about what we'll be talking about at our next meeting?
Ms. Vicar?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Certainly, members can provide feedback and input for staff's consideration as we work on developing the next agenda.
I think it's safe to say, because finance and audit, we will probably be referring the restorative justice to the committee. That would probably be the first one. And then the other one would probably, once we get the motion to refer the vacant property to the committee, those would be the two that I would see, would be the first two that would come to the committee, just based on timing, unless you see something else, Hillary?
Well, I think the other thing we might hear from staff next time is the implementation of the pedestrian unallocated budget, where you guys did give some feedback on in the Bayview neighborhood, and there was some added pedestrian safe zone that was added in there. So it would be nice to just kind of hear back from staff about how that's going.
And also the liquor policy will be coming, because I have a motion to refer that to the committee for review, along with staff, because it hasn't been reviewed in, what, 25 years, 26 years, so it's very old. Ms. Wood?
I was just going to say, also, we could have an update on the drop-in hubs as well, because the next meeting, I think, is scheduled for December.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, thank you. I was going drop-in. Anything else? Ruth?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention something that I heard about at work, which was building off of what Hillary was talking about with the exit interviews. So, and we're all familiar with the concept of an exit interview. Someone's leaving a place of work, their business is folded, whatever. It's after the fact. The concept of a stay interview, so that you are actually doing the interview before the business fails, before the person picks up and changes jobs or what have you. And especially the concept of stay interviews in the context of like new projects that are being put in. That's something that I'd like to see or talk about anyway.
And just, I know it's not really along public safety, but it is going towards keeping businesses, is I am looking at, and I've talked to staff about it. We haven't changed the way businesses have been taxed versus, right now, the break in taxes is going to the homeowners. It might be time to switch it to go to the businesses. That's something that will be looked at, not this year, like, because we're already in the financial planning, but for next year. Because we hear from a lot of businesses that their taxes have gone up 50% in 3 years, which is very significant. And it's, you know, it's just becoming so costly to do business, especially in the restaurants. Yeah. Go ahead.
Through the chair, can I ask a question of the fire chief
Doyle?
around vacant properties? I know in some places like Vancouver, vacant property fires have been a huge issue, and I don't know if that's also an issue here in Nanaimo. I personally had a vacant property behind my home and kind of had to deal with that, and it was quite a bit of work, you know, to be letting everybody know. And of course, the outcome was great, but the biggest concern is people being inside those properties, lighting fires, and you know, that kind of thing. So I'm just wondering if that's a concern here in Nanaimo.
Chief Doyle?
Through the chair. Yeah, certainly vacant properties, less traffic. When there's less eyes on a property, there's more opportunity for activity like fires to occur. So yes, vacant properties are definitely more of a concern than properties that are have regular attendance to them. Some of the actions we can take for vacant properties are we can board them up, we can fence them, we can ask them to have security. So, yeah. Does that answer your question, sorry?
And just a follow-up to that.
Yep.
Do you guys do preventive work on that, or is most of yours done through complaint-driven?
As a matter of fact, it is complaint-based, but when in saying that, we also have an inspection schedule. So there's over 3,000 inspections, businesses that we inspect in Nanaimo. And we inspect those on a regular basis. So sometimes through our inspection schedule, we will find properties, vacant properties, and find issues that way. In fact, we found a couple this week. So it is complaint-based, but another layer of our fire prevention is inspections, and that helps us identify properties that need more action.
Kevin?
Since we're all sitting here, I just thought I'd bring something up for discussion, if you don't mind, and
No,
feel
of
free to say no, but it's something that came up when I served on Public Safety Committee in Langley before moving to the island a number of years ago. And just because it's easy to talk about, because I know it, but the Public Safety Committee, has a local mandate, obviously, and, gets a lot of information from fire and police. But I just wanted to put it out there that something that came up previously was looking at the health side of things. Even though it's a provincial jurisdiction, there's a lot of room for advocacy and people that will listen to a city, mayors and councils, advocacy through UBCM, that kind of stuff that can be pretty powerful. And there's a lot of initiatives that affect public safety through my side of things on the paramedic side that are different initiatives going on. There's stuff to talk about, maybe even jointly with fire, things like public access defibrillators, like at Westwood or something like that, or things like, there's community paramedic initiatives that we're trying to roll out to urban areas where community paramedics, not traditional response model, are providing care for people in different ways. We have low acuity response units that respond to 911 calls that are ranked as lower priority, so it doesn't capture the same attention. But there's a lot of initiatives that impact the local side of things, and I just wonder if there's room for that discussion. It's a little tangential, I appreciate that, but I wonder if there's any sort of room, because even stuff like Next Generation 911 is sort of a big provincial, bigger initiative that comes out, but is going to have an impact on just calling 911 and location and video calling and all sorts of different things. So there's a lot of stuff out there that affects public safety in town, but because it's a provincial mandate, it's pretty easy to just kind of go, that's their problem. And I just wonder if there's room for that.
I personally think it's good because it gives more awareness of what's happening, what's available, what's not available, what we can do to advocate for, it goes into our line that our firemen are being used as first responders to medical calls, should they or should they not be? Those are big questions that I think communities are struggling with, because we're paying a lot of money to send a fireman to a call and I know this government has been trying to up your paramedics, whatever, but it takes time. So I personally think that affects public safety. I don't know how the rest of the committee feels. I think it's definitely a place, because if we need a filler, right, which I think we may, I think it'd be great to hear about what are the initiatives, because it is keeping our community safe, right?
Yeah, just if there's anything I can ever add on that or invite people or I just offer it up anyways, or, something in
How do the
conjunction
other
with the
committee
chief on how
members
things
feel?
go.
Is it something you'd like to hear more about? I personally would like to have a presentation at a later date once we get see what our next work plans are like when we get our things from council, And I think that would be a great one if we're in an area where we don't have a council project to work on. Or, it's going to be we can spend half an hour on this and then let's bring it in, because I think the more we hear about what's going on to help our public stay healthy, because it's, like I said, it's not just about crime, right? We have to remember this is keeping the public safety, which could mean that we're advocating, we want to see more ambulances in our community, or we want to see our on-call paramedics be paid appropriately, not whatever it was, $1 an hour or whatever it was for the longest time. Doug? And then Colin?
I don't know whether search and rescue and/or St. John's Ambulance might factor into that discussion.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Sorry, that's not a bad idea. I didn't even, Nanaimo, SAR, we work, I think, fire probably works with them more
Yeah,
than we do.
and we pay
But,
for SAR.
they're definitely there and a big city resource as well.
That's good, because we pay for that and we paid for new buildings, so that's another option that we could put those together. Are you getting those as possible topics, Ms. Ricard? Okay, Colin?
Yeah, I was just going to say, on the topic of advocacy, I realize that, we've voted and passed the work plan, and some of those advocacy themes that are more aligned with provincial mandates, so on, were identified as low priorities. And I think the role of this committee and the need for advocacy to come from somewhere, I think we need to look at, just because something is listed as a low priority doesn't mean we're just going to let this fall through the cracks, because
Exactly.
I think that's the concern when you have those, when you put something down as a low priority, that ultimately really is quite important.
I was going to say,
for
we
us to do
don't
so.
have to adhere to that as a low priority either. Right now, compared to others, it might be, but if we solve one or two, then all of a sudden it can come up to higher, or something may happen. I think if there's anything at any point in time that you want to see this council advocate for, there's nothing wrong with sending us an email saying, could you please put this on? We would like to see an advocacy piece done by mayor and council. I think it's really important that we do that. Kevin?
So just to point to that too, and I don't know, maybe this is something that should have come up, because I've learned this, scraps of it through the years of meetings and stuff, is things like Robert's Rules of Orders and how meetings function might not be super known to people, but like we're a committee, you can make motions, you can amend things, you can change things if you want to. That's the whole point of a committee, right? So if we want to change something in the future, you can have a motion, discuss it, vote on it, and that's the way it's supposed to go.
Yeah, like let's be honest, if there's a change in government, there could be a big change in the way funding models are coming, and we may have to change some of our priorities because certain things may not be happening. We don't know, right? So, and I think it's really important that, like you said, this work plan is changeable. It's a living document that can be changed at any time. If this committee makes a decision not by vote, that they want to put something ahead of something else, by all means, this is your committee. So feel free to bring forward suggestions at any time. If you think something's important, bring it forward, and you can, like you said, like Kevin said, you can make a motion. I would ask first that you send it to myself, Hillary, and Ms. Vicar, so that we can look at it first, and then we can provide direction, say, yeah, we would like you to bring a motion forward. Staff will work with you to bring forward, like, the wording of the motion. Like, I just send my ideas, and they draft them for me, because mine are always wrong. So, yeah, it's really important. Like, our staff is really good, and they will help you work through any of that at any time. Like, that's what they're here to help support you, and even they might say, yeah, if you want, I can draft it for you, take a look. Does this hit what you were looking for, or does it not? Like we have excellent staff, so please feel free to, I just asked that Hillary and I be CC'd, just so that we know where we're going. And then if we think, we'll let Mr. Harding know, or Mr. LeBerge, or Chief Doyle. Anything else? Anything from staff? Okay, sorry, Doug. Go ahead, Doug. Nothing from staff?
The next meeting is in December, and with the discussion today, if you and Hillary think that 2 hours is not enough, if you end up, or in staff, decide to start at 3, I'd rather meet for 1 hour extra than more often, but that's just...
So looking at the table then, would a 3 o'clock start be better all the time? Or is 4, I think we did 4 because it was better for those that worked. And we can do the one-off 3s, because then that would give us, like, we could set something for 3 to 6, but you might get tired after that too, right? Like, Colin, and then I'll go to Ms. Vicar after for her thoughts.
Yeah, I think the 4 o'clock start is better for me for the workday, but I also agree that if there's something that we have a lot of things on the agenda. I mean, today we only had one thing on the agenda, and we still took an hour, right? So.
Would people be interested, I don't know if we can do this, like going to 7? No? Okay, that's why I'm just asking. Yeah, me neither, but I'm just asking. So what we'll do is, and we'll look at the agenda. If we feel that it's going to take more time, we can send out a poll or something to see, are people available to come in for 3? And if somebody's not, we can always put a different topic, like if it's going to be like, just know that we're going to start and you'll come in when the important part is, whatever. We can try and work around that. Your thoughts?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I do believe that it will be highly dependent from meeting to meeting how many items there are on the agenda, as well as what kinds of items. So there could be 1 or 2 items that require much more in-depth discussion versus a meeting that has maybe 5 items, but they are all fairly quickly dealt with. So we'll do our best to coordinate and plan accordingly.
Perfect. Hillary?
And I think, like, with the Accessibility Committee, we have oftentimes quite a few agenda items, and we do manage to make it through. Just kind of, you're cognizant of time, and especially if you do have a chance to read the agenda beforehand, and if you have questions that you expect are going to come up, feel free to send those ahead of time so we can kind of make sure that staff come prepared with those answers, and we might be able to work through that a little bit more quickly, but preparation helps for those.
Kevin?
Just my take on it is I really hate it when time constraints shut down conversation that's valuable, because it might be another 5 minutes that actually gets you somewhere, but you don't get that chance.
So, Mr. Carr, are we limited to have to shut down at 6, or can it be extended by, what do you call it, by the vote? I don't know what the committee rules are on that.
Madam Chair, my understanding is that the 6 o'clock end time is standard across advisory committees, and also recognition for staff's capacity and time.
Yeah, that's something that we have to be really cognizant of, because these ladies sit on many other committees as well, so, and then have their other regular duties, so. Hillary?
But I think it's a really good point, and I think that's, like, we'll be really cognizant when we're building the agendas, not to build in, like, too many presentations, because I know that, like, if you have a 20-minute presentation, it takes up a chunk of time, so try to, if we do have invited presentations, maybe we limit them to, like, 10 minutes so that we
Yes.
have more time for questions, because I know oftentimes there's so much work being done on these various programs, and they're really excited to share it with us, but it's like, well, send us the presentation ahead of time, we'll all read it, and then we can actually have the discussion when they're here, instead of actually going through like 15 different slides, which is a part that I sometimes get frustrated with, and then it doesn't leave time for the quality discussion, like you mentioned, so thanks for that.
Yeah. No, I think that's good, and I think we can work with staff to ensure if we know there's going to be a bunch of work that's done, we may need that extra hour and throw it out. And it, by no means do people have to come at 3. If you can't come till 4, that's fine too. We'll catch you up fast, you know, because we can, can make some rough notes or something if you know where, we know you're going to be here. Or again, if we know that it is, we'll try and, like, because I'm with Hillary, some of the presentations, like we sat through one the other day that was half an hour that could have been done in 10 minutes. And then I had to sit through it yesterday again at the RDN. You know, it is TikTok. Okay, if I see no other conversations, thank you, everybody, for your time once again, and hopefully now we'll be able to start doing some work, now that we've got the crap stuff done, but it's the important stuff to get us where we're going to go. So any further comments? Seeing none, could I have a motion to adjourn? Motion